over to you. But before I do, I forgot to mention that we have next week, we have part 2 of our 3-part series in self-management skills. We do record these events, so if you'd like to see the first one, I will be sharing that as well in our email list for our events. So once again, get at me if you'd like to be added to this email list, and I'll hand it off to Leanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, everybody, so be patient with me. I want to make sure that I pick the right screen. Tim, can you just confirm I'm showing the right screen?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leanne, and if you're curious about harnessing the power of LinkedIn, then you are indeed in the right place. We're going to talk about LinkedIn as it pertains to creating a profile that attracts recruiters, and of course, a few job search strategies as well. So that's what we're going to cover today. So if you were looking to cover something different, we do have some additional LinkedIn sessions coming up later in the month and into the springtime. But today we're really going to look at how we're going to use LinkedIn to start growing your network, growing your personal brand, and of course, getting eyes on your profile. And it's the eyes on the profile that starts to turn your profile into opportunity for growth or recruitment. A few housekeeping notes. Sorry, I'm just getting my slides here. A few housekeeping notes before we go on. We're using Microsoft Teams today, which has the ability to include chats or include questions in the chat. And I would love for today's session, yes, I do have some prepared materials, but your profile is very unique to you. And so if you have questions as it pertains to some of the struggles or the challenges that you're coming up against in your own particular profile, please drop them in the chat, because I want to make sure that we answer your questions and you walk away from today's session with some action items and things that you can do and take action today on your LinkedIn profile. And I know that, you know, there's a number of social media platforms out there that we can all use to build relationships with. But LinkedIn really is the platform that we all use to build those professional relationships. And you could say that we can do this on Facebook or even on Instagram as well. But as far as professional content and professional connections, LinkedIn really is the most powerful tool, but often the most underutilized tool in your toolbox. So that's why we're talking about it today. And I'm really hoping by the end of today's session that you've uncovered a couple ways that you can use LinkedIn not only to complete your profile, but start to engage in your particular industry or field of study. And through that, you'll start to see some traction and start to find opportunities in your chosen workplace. Before I go on, I just want to make sure I do have the Microsoft Teams thing set up so I can see any questions. The lovely thing about technology. Sorry, gang. Just going to make sure that the chat window is open. Perfect. You should see Tim's email address in there. That is perfect. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to take a look at the platform itself and its growing popularity. If you have opportunity to open a tab and take a look at LinkedIn as we go through today's presentation, that would be probably the most helpful. We're going to look at your personal profile and the key areas that I feel one should focus on, especially when you're in the job search and recruitment stage of your career. And then we're going to look at a couple of LinkedIn's features that will help you meet more people in the industry and, of course, attract more recruiters to your profile. So by the end of today's presentation, I'm really hoping that you have a better understanding of LinkedIn and how people view LinkedIn profiles. And of course, to identify a few areas of your profile that you may want to revisit and tighten up a little bit to make more attractive for recruiters and organizations. So a quick word about myself. My name is Leanne Calderwood, and my passion is personal branding. I work in the meetings and events industry, and I've been hanging my hat there for 20 years. And that's where I built my personal brand and got most of my LinkedIn traction myself. So I create content daily and weekly, not only on LinkedIn, but I also have a blog over at leannecalderwood.com and a YouTube channel as well. And it was, again, really through LinkedIn that my brand and my industry started to grow. It's where I was offered my most recent position, and I also attracted a rock star business partner through that process. I also started receiving invitations to present at different conferences, and that is, of course, how TechNation found me. Is I was speaking at some of the industry conferences and became a referral for Tim and his team. So the power of LinkedIn to find different opportunities, even outside of your own industry, is there, and that's why we want to talk about how to do that for you guys today. I've also now created an online digital course just about LinkedIn profiles. It's launching in a few weeks. If you want information about that course, I'll have that link at the end of this session as well. And I should mention, it was really only 3 years ago, maybe 4 now, I should update my slide, 3 or 4 years ago that I got intentional about LinkedIn. So no matter how far into your career you may be, or if you're even at the beginning, it doesn't take long to start seeing traction. So this is not some 10-year process where you finally start to engage an audience. Even doing a little bit each day will start to create that traction for you. So I want you to be encouraged by that, because it can happen very quickly, no matter what industry that you're in. So first off, I do want to give you a bit of a history about LinkedIn, mostly because there are some misnomers out there about what LinkedIn is really used for. So it was launched in 2003, which is now roughly 18 years ago, and only had about 4,500 members on the platform at that time. But over time, it has jumped exponentially. And of course, if you were around in 2016, you probably heard about the acquisition of LinkedIn at $26.2 billion. So it is a platform that has grown exponentially, as well as the other platforms as well, but it continues its uphill growth into 2021. Back in the day, it was seen kind of as the job search platform, and that's what people used to find recruitment and for recruiters to find candidates. It has evolved into a content machine, and that's why we're talking about LinkedIn today. It's not only about job recruitment anymore, but it's about creating connections that can potentially link to job recruitment, and like I said, other branding opportunities. But it is still that tool that people use, especially recruiters use, to find talent. So we want people to find you. So here are some current numbers. We now have around 760 million users. 3 million of those share content weekly. I am one of those 3 million, and if you would like the opportunity to be one of those 3 million, I'm going to show you some easy ways that you can do that today. So I want you, again, at the end of the day, to feel comfortable being at least a monthly user and getting yourself on the platform in at least a weekly basis. But again, some easy ways to make you one of the 3 million weekly content sharers. That's really what's going to grow your brand quickly. And of course, it's still one of the best places to hang out if you're looking for a job. Again, the job opportunities abound. And just last year, they launched this open to work symbol, which you may have seen on LinkedIn. This signifies to anyone who's on your profile that you are open to talking about job opportunities. So for students or for people looking at that next career opportunity, this is a great place to show the network that you're open for those discussions. And so for those of you who are still developing your career, your LinkedIn profile will show up as one of the top search results in Google. So the importance of having an engaging and accurate profile goes back to even to the Google results, as people will start Googling you. if they're entertaining hiring you for their organization. Job recruiters will Google you. So let's make sure that we have a profile that they can land on and engage with quickly. As I mentioned, your LinkedIn profile is as personal and unique to you as your own fingerprint. And so today I want to highlight a few areas that you can focus on, but you may have some additional questions about how to make it even more unique for your industry. And I do want to leave time for that at the end of the session. So if you have questions, like I said, please raise them. I'm going to have to check the chat manually. Jesse, I have your question here. I am going to answer that question in this presentation. So hang on to that one, and we're going to get to that one. So thank you for your question, Jesse. So the first area, while it's the most obvious, it still requires some intentional thought, and that is your profile picture. Now, while we all wish that when people landed on our profile that they would look at our experience, the skills we bring to the table, it's really the visual elements at the top of the profile that will engage people to read on further about you. Is it right? Nope, it's not. I would agree 1000%, but that's just how the profile is laid out. So we need to ensure that we're capitalizing with a professional profile picture. It's the stepping stone for them to read on and learn all the great things about what we can bring to the table as a professional. When I say a professional picture, I do not mean spending money on a professional photographer to take your picture. Our phones now have the ability to take incredible photos. So if you can recruit a friend or a family member to take some photos of you, the iPhone in particular, if you have an iPhone, has the portrait setting, which I'm sure you've started playing with, taking pictures of flowers, that's what the portrait, it's brilliant for that. But it's also brilliant for taking pictures that you can upload as a professional headshot and use as your brand picture. So my words of advice, if you're still working on tightening up your profile picture, is find yourself in a well-lit place. Make sure that the light is in front of you, not behind you. By having it in front of you, it reduces any shadows on your face. In this particular picture, you can see the light is actually coming at her from her right-hand side. So make sure the light is in front of you, not behind you. Use the portrait setting. This particular individual here, she's not wearing a fancy business suit. She's wearing a respectable outfit. For the ladies, her hair is very, there's not a lot of fuss in her hair, not a lot of fuss in her makeup, extremely professional shot, and this is good to go. So you don't need anything more fancy or staged or dramatic than that. I'm just going to quickly again pop into the questions, see if there's any questions about the profile picture. Nope. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to go on. So the second area, second visual element on LinkedIn profile is the banner. And this is one that gets ignored, unfortunately, because it's a great piece of real estate for you, not only to position your brand, but position some skills, etc. Pardon me. And if you are familiar with Canva, which is it's canva.com, it's an online design tool. I'm guessing some of you have probably played with Canva ad nauseum to create graphics for Instagram or Facebook. You can also create graphics for your LinkedIn banner. If you're brand new to Canva, it's very easy to kind of log in and play around with the tools. It is a free tool and they have a ton of templates. In fact, all you need to do is use their search tool and type in LinkedIn banner and a plethora of templates will pop up. These templates, you can change the colors, you can change the fonts, you can pull in different pictures and visuals. So there's quite a few things that you can do with your banner. In fact, I wanted to show you how quickly it was to create a custom banner. Granted, I'm on Canva a lot, so you're right, I'm familiar with the platform, but I created this in roughly 90 seconds. So if you can take 45 minutes to an hour to create something, you're going to have something equally as engaging. This person, by the way, I don't know this person. It was a stock image from Canva. Again, you can pull images from Canva and create something that speaks about you and your industry. So the third piece of real estate that I feel is critical for gaining a recruiter's attention is the headline. This is the 280, I believe, character piece that falls right below your name, right at the top. The headline is not the place, if you're looking for jobs, the headline is not the place for you to put things like looking for work. That's why that green open to work circle, I think, was created. Is the open to work will indicate your intention to have conversations about work placement. So the headline then becomes this phenomenal piece of real estate where you can position yourself as an industry thought leader or someone, something more compelling than just looking for work. So I've included a couple examples here. This is an example from my industry where I work with a lot of hotels who are placing their meetings and conferences, or at least they used to. Instead of looking for work at a hotel as your headline, create something that's going to draw a recruiter in or draw a hotel in. So I've created a couple examples here and I'll let you read them. But these statements really position your skills, it positions your passion, and most importantly, it positions you as a person of service, a person who is going to help. And that's one of the recurring themes in your LinkedIn profile. Is the profile is not a regurgitation of a resume, but rather it is a representation of how you can serve your future organization. And you're going to see that theme recur through the other LinkedIn profile elements that we're going to start to go through. Again, I'm just going to jump quickly in the chat to see if there's any other questions. Jesse, don't worry, I'm still getting to you, my friend. We're going to talk about organizational pages coming up here. So the fourth section, and this is where the meat of the profile is the about section. So there's 2,000 characters in this about section where you can start to really expand on how you can help your future organization. So this is where you can place your skills, your internships. Again, it shouldn't be a regurgitation of the things you've done, but rather the things that you do that will serve the future employer. So list them how they contribute to the organization and take up all 2,000 characters if you can. You've got the real estate, so you may as well expound on it. So in the same way that you made your about section for the employer, your work experience should act in a similar manner. Now, the work experience section, that's what's going to look the most like a traditional resume. But again, it's still not the traditional resume where you just listed job responsibilities and in bullet point form. I'm quite happy to share my age. I'm in my middle 40s, and when I was looking for jobs in my 20s and 30s, that's what the resume was. It was just kind of this bullet list of responsibilities that you performed at the an employer, and it really wasn't about, well, what does this mean for the new employer? On LinkedIn, you've got the creative liberty to do that. And so when you're listing out your responsibilities under your work experience, again, show how that would benefit the employer, whether it's increasing efficiencies, increasing revenue, decreasing costs, whatever that looks like. Make sure that when the recruiter is looking at the work experience, that they can confidently answer the question, I know what this means for my company. I know what this person can do to elevate my company. So when you read your own profile now today to look at changes, take a step outside of yourself and look at it as a third party. Start to read each line and go, okay, what does this mean? Does this mean that they can help me, and how can they do that? So that's my biggest tip, is to look through your entire LinkedIn profile with that filter, and you'll get a better understanding of how recruiters are going to view your profile as well. So this is one example of something that might be listed in your work experience, especially if you are just heading into the career phase of your job phase of your career. If most of your work experience are summer placements or summer employment, and in particular, if you've been working at restaurants or at least used to work at restaurants, turning a simple statement like I used to wait tables, or I used to be a banquet server, into something again that the recruiter can look at and go, oh, okay, I know how this person can add value to our organization, and they'll continue to read on about you. The rule of thumb with a profile is you're trying to keep that person on your profile as long as humanly possible. That's where the value is. So creating those statements encourages them to read on and read on and read on, and that it really is the goal. If you can capture someone's attention and keep them on your profile for a prolonged period of time, you've created an impression, and that impression can carry on into an employment opportunity. It can carry on into another branding opportunity, but that really is the goal for your profile from head to toe, is how do I keep this person on my page? Consider it your own website. And then of course the last, and this is again really critical for those of you who are in the stage in your career where you're looking for new employment, the accomplishments and projects area. These areas don't typically get a lot of focus, which is really too bad, because it's a great place for you to put details again about some of the things that you have achieved to this date. Again, how that achievement will help your employer, and the projects that you've done. And these can be projects that you've done in your education, back at school, maybe projects that you've done for a volunteer organization, but writing about those projects and again, how they could help your next employer. Those are great pieces of real estate, and recruiters do look at those areas. So those are the 6 areas that I feel someone who is looking for their next placement in their career should focus on. Keep in mind, there are a ton of areas on LinkedIn, and I encourage you to look at all of them. But if you can get a really, really great handle and feel really confident about these 6 areas, you've created a piece of work that I think recruiters will spend a lot of time on. So those are the 6 areas. Now we're going to look at a couple of features on LinkedIn that will get you in front of those said recruiters so that they do jump back on your profile. Now, when you first log on to LinkedIn, the first thing you're going to see is the home feed. And of course, there's going to be this scroll of news articles, posts that people have written, but there's some features outside of the news feed that will give you visibility to a different kind of audience, not just your connections. Remember, the news feed is content that has been created or shared by your connections only. So if you have a small LinkedIn network, you're not going to see a lot of diversity in your home feed. That's why we're going to jump into LinkedIn groups. And I'm not going to lie, I have to admit LinkedIn groups is clunky, and it's not nearly as smooth of a social media experience as, say, Facebook groups is. But there are people who hang out in LinkedIn groups and provide content in LinkedIn groups that you can now connect with outside of the group and start that connection and start to grow your network and your brand. So that's why I do want to show you a bit about LinkedIn groups, and there's going to be LinkedIn groups out there for your industry. There's a LinkedIn group for everything, just like there's a Facebook group for everything. So it's a great place to see what the industry buzz is about. So again, this is where you're starting to learn more about your industry and becoming an industry thought leader yourself. And it's also a great place to jump into the conversation. The point of groups and where you'll see the success for your brand isn't in promoting yourself within the group, but rather contributing to the discussion and providing visibility to your profile through sharing of insights, sharing of questions, again, adding to the discussion. The people who see your activity in groups are going to jump back to your profile. So again, the profile, that is your home base. That's what we want to keep clean and tidy and attractive so that when people come back to visit, they want to stay as long as humanly possible. But groups is what's going to get them the invitation to come and visit your home. So to find relevant groups, you simply use the search function at the top of LinkedIn and you type in your topic or any other related keyword related to your industry, and then you select groups. And the results will appear, and then you can go, you're shopping from there to find groups that are relevant. Now, for each group, you need to submit a request to join a group, and please take a read of the group's rules before joining. Most groups have a rule that prohibits selling and self-promotion, and those actions can actually get you kicked out of the group. So again, the group's intent is to create connections, introduce you to other people, share insights, share questions, share your expertise. And even if you're brand new to the industry, it is a great place to learn what the industry is talking about so that you can contribute to the discussion. I'm just going to take a very quick look at the questions, especially Jesse. Jesse, your question about following employers. So this is where we're going to talk about the employer pages. And I will answer to your question. So what we're talking about now is LinkedIn pages, and pages act as the voice of an organization on LinkedIn. So the employers that Jesse's referring to, yes, they're going to have a LinkedIn page. Jesse, I recommend you start following them right now, but remember, what our action is after today's presentation is to schedule some time in your calendar to clean up your LinkedIn profile. So once you start contributing to the discussion and the organization starts to recognize your name and your profile, then they're going to jump back to your profile page and check you out. So when you join a company page, the company itself may not take notice that you joined. It's when you start to interact with the content. And that's what we're talking about with LinkedIn pages, is the company will post content on hopefully a regular basis, goodness. And some ways that you can interact with the content once you start following them is reading what they're posting and either liking, commenting, or sharing their post. And so that value ladder of liking a piece of content, they will see that you liked it and they may jump over to your profile. If you comment on it, they're going to read your comment and the likelihood of them jumping to your profile increases. And finally, if you share that piece of content, the likelihood of them seeing that is going to increase yet again, which increases the chances of them yet again going back to your LinkedIn profile. So all of these rules are not hard and fast rules, but that's kind of how the value ladder works in really any social media platform. If you have a social media platform on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you see the comments before you start to tally up who has liked your content. The same thing works with LinkedIn, and of course with the LinkedIn company pages, those eyes mean that maybe there's some potential there to engage in further discussion about employment opportunities. So Jesse, I hope I answered your question for that, but I will check the chat to make sure that I have. The third and final feature before we head into an extensive Q&A is hashtags. And again, if you're on any other social media platform, you've seen hashtags used. Hashtags are the ability for you to track conversations about various topics. And again, you don't have to be friends with someone to see their content if it's linked to a hashtag. LinkedIn uses hashtags as well. So I encourage you to start using hashtags not only in the content that you are creating for your home feed, but also when you start sharing the content maybe from a company's page. You can do some research about what hashtags would work best, and I believe I created a visual for this. If you go to the top search bar again and you start doodling hashtags, you can see how many people follow a certain hashtag. So for your industry, you want to do some research. What hashtags are really popular for your industry, and just keep a scrap piece of paper with those hashtags nearby, so that when you do start creating content or you start commenting or sharing content, you can throw a few of those hashtags in there. And like in the feed that you're seeing now in the slide, people can start picking up on you contributing to that conversation. So this is a really organic way of a number of people through a number of different arms and expertise finding your profile is through hashtags. And again, it's a feature that not a lot of people use or know how to capitalize on. So even if you just find one hashtag that you can use to start to kind of grow your reach that way, you could attract some really interesting opportunities. So my top action items or takeaways for today: ensure your profile is recruiter ready, using those keywords we talked about earlier and using those helper words. Again, positioning your profile from a place of service rather than a place of promotion will attract a recruiter's attention and keep their attention for a lot longer. Find and engage in a couple industry groups. Doesn't have to be extensive. Try one group out, see what the conversation is like in there for a few weeks. Please do give it a few weeks. Like I said, groups on LinkedIn don't have nearly the traction or the organization as Facebook groups. So although they're a bit clunky, stick it out, because you could end up finding some really great nuggets of knowledge and some really great connections in groups. Also start to follow and engage in some company pages for your industry. These are maybe companies that you want to work for eventually, or companies that you admire, maybe even past companies that you want to just keep following to see how they're growing their LinkedIn following. And then, of course, identify a few hashtags that work well for your industry, slide them into your content, slide them into discussions when you're commenting or sharing a company page, and see if you can get traction from there. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you. You can find a course that I'm doing in a few weeks over on my website at leanneCalderwood.com/LinkedIn. The course is going to be launched in a few weeks, but if you go there and sign up to receive updates, then I'll ensure that you're on the list for when that course launches. But really, just connect with me on LinkedIn. And connect with other LinkedIn thought leaders. There's quite a few people much smarter than me that are also hanging out on LinkedIn and providing LinkedIn tips and tricks. And I encourage you to find those individuals and see what they're doing and what kind of content they're posting and what kind of traction that they're creating with that. I'm going to jump into the chat here, so be patient with me, Janet. So more about key successes rather than tactical work. Janet, I'm going to assume you're referring to the work experience bullets. The tactical work can be in the bullet itself, but again, try to twist the tactical work in how it either helped your former organization. So let me think of a great, I'm trying to think, okay, I'm going to think of an example from my own life, if you don't mind. So a tactical piece of work from my former career was I planned a global event conference for 1,000 internal employees. Okay, great. But what does that mean for the organization? So I would rephrase that tactical planned and the internal conference of 1,000 people to planned an internal conference for 1,000 people who could then, oh gosh, what did they do with that? Well, it was an oil and gas company. So they grew their oil and gas revenues over the year using new best practices gained from the global summit. So again, you're trying to just turn that tactical piece of work in either a cost savings or a revenue increaser or an efficiency increaser. Is there something about your tactical work that will save the organization either time or money or manpower? Those are kinds of things that you want to tie with the tactical pieces of your skill set. So I hope I answered that question, but if I didn't, please comment again in the post. And Janet, I see, I'm just going to read your question to make sure I completely understand it, and then I'll, if you. So Janet, if you don't mind, I'm going to read your question out loud so that everyone can hear what your question is. If you post on behalf of an organization, how do you best differentiate between your own views and the organization's views? I'm going to assume, Janet, that you're either posting as an admin of that LinkedIn company page, or you work for an organization and you're posting content about your organization on your home feed. I hope I got that right. So if you're posting information on your home feed, but it's about the organization that you work for, ensure anything that you're posting is factual. Whether you need to fact check it with a colleague before you post it, etc. But make sure that whatever you're posting about the organization is factual. If you're posting through the organization page and you're an admin, the same rules apply there, and I'm assuming that you'll have other admins of the company page as well. Yes, as an admin of a company page. Okay, so all of the admins, I recommend you guys do come together and set some ground rules for engagement on your company page about how often you're going to post, what you're going to post about. Now, you don't need to, again, if you're all admins, you're there for a reason. You've obviously been designated as someone who can be trusted with the social media, but I would get some rules of engagement together with your other admins to ensure that the content has a seamless flow from admin to admin to admin. Now, if you want to post something personal on that page, I think you can save that for your home feed versus putting any personal posts on the company page. But the company page is also a great place to showcase employees. Remember, people buy from people, not companies anymore. So if you're able to post about new hires or hires that have maybe just completed some certifications or coursework, putting it on your company page with that person's personal picture and maybe a link to their personal profile would be a great way to highlight that employee. So I hope that helps, but certainly welcome other questions. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I can talk a little bit more about groups. Groups are a funny place because they are a bit clunky, and there's a lot of groups that do not have regular traction. Even though the rules exist for you to not do self-promotion in groups, you're going to jump in groups and see a ton of self-promotion. And if over time, your 3-week trial period that I mentioned, if over the 3 weeks you're still seeing that a group, all it is self-promotion, spend your time somewhere else and find groups where there's engaging conversation. Now, one thing you can do when you jump into groups and you start to see engaging conversation from some individuals, but you're not quite at the place where you want to like or comment or share that person's in particular post, what you can do is invite that person to connect with you. And I recommend you do that through a personalized invitation on LinkedIn. So let's say I jump in a group and Janet's hanging out there and she's offering some great insights about marketing. I could connect with Janet, and the note I would send to Janet when I connect with her is, hey, Janet, I see we are both members of the marketing group on LinkedIn. I really like the post you did the other day about social media marketing in 2021, and I'd love to continue to follow your content. Would you be open to connecting here on LinkedIn? So Janet's going to see that message from me, and hopefully I've stroked her ego enough that she's like, yeah, I want you to follow my content, and clicks yes. And now I've been invited into Janet's network. What does that mean for your network? It means anyone that Janet had as a second degree, or yes, anyone that Janet had in her connections now becomes a second degree connection in your world. What that means is if Janet was to ever find your content and either like, comment, or share it, your profile now appears maybe in her connections home feed, because it'll say Janet liked this post from Leanne. And my post will appear in all of her second connections feed. So, you know, the old adage, the 6 degrees of separation, LinkedIn is that. And the more connections that you can create, more intentional and meaningful connections that you can create, the wider your total network becomes. And that's, again, where opportunities start to leak in. As for recruiters, if you decide to connect with recruiters, be again ensure that you position your connection request as a place of service and not as, I want to connect with you because I want to get a job at your company, but come from it as a place of service. And then they're going to start to see your content and, of course, visit your profile on a more regular basis. All the tactics I've kind of outlined in this session, they fall along what's called an inbound marketing strategy. And what inbound marketing is, for those of you who aren't in marketing, is, you know, days of old, the sales messages was more of a pushing sales messages out there. Those are the television ads, those are the newspaper ads, it's the phone call solicitation, etc. But what inbound marketing is now I've come from a place of service, and I want you to recognize what I do from a service standpoint, and I'm going to draw you towards me rather than push my marketing message out to you. And even if you're not in marketing, you could be a computer science major on this call right now. You're still a salesperson, and the person you're selling is you. So if you can sell more from an inbound marketing versus a hard sell perspective, that's really the language of LinkedIn and what people will pick up on a lot faster than a hard sell of your skill set. So I know no one asked that question, but it's definitely the way I've positioned my LinkedIn experience and a way I've seen most people who have been successful in growing their brands, how they have positioned their sales and marketing strategy. And what I mean by sales and marketing, again, it's you are the product, right? Because that's your job is to sell you as a product. No one else is going to sell you. The onus is on you to craft and sell you as a product. Are there any other questions at all? I know Tim had to jump off the call at one point. He had another meeting that he needed to facilitate as well. So if there aren't any other questions, I will wait for Tim to end the call, but I am still here if you'd like to ask a question. Please let me know any questions that you have. I'm here for the full hour, so please feel free to ask me anything, and I'm happy to provide.
Hi, Leanne. I'm actually still here. My call is in one, so I was mistaken there. So
Okay.
maybe it might be curious if one of the attendees would I don't know, maybe volunteer you going through their LinkedIn profile and maybe you can give a little advice.
I would love to do that. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think I've done that, Tim. Let me know if I have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any volunteers?
I promise I don't bite.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, I would be fine with that.
Okay. So I believe, who are we speaking with?
Palak,
Palak. Hi, Palak.
how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So I believe, Palak, what you need to do is open your share tray, or at least that's what I had to do on this app. And then you could choose a screen to share, and hopefully your LinkedIn profile will pop up for us. The other way we could do it, Tim, is Palak, if you want to share your last name, I can just go and find your profile on LinkedIn as well.
Sure. I'm just trying to find a way to go on the chat. Give me a second. I'm actually on my phone. Can you give me a second if I can go on my laptop?
Sure. You can also just send Leanne an invite on LinkedIn, and then she has it right there, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Let me do that right now. I just sent it.
Okay, I'm just waiting for it to come through. Hasn't come through yet. That's okay. I'll just check on my phone. Palak, what's your last name?
Guman.
And how do you spell that?
Ghumman.
Ah, there it is. Okay. So, oh, and it did come through on my desktop here. There it is. Okay. Okay, Palak, I love your profile picture. It looks great. Really well done there. It looks very clean and simple. So the background photo, I think that's where you can take some liberties and add a bit of text to compel them to read further. So I just want to see you've got, okay, so you're a business technology management co-op student. Oh, wow, you've got some great things in your headline. The only thing I would change in your headline is how that would help a future organization. And if help is not a word that you're comfortable using, words for job recruit or people looking for job placements can use words like aspire or contribute. Those are two words that that might play well in your headline. So, you know,
Okay.
if you're looking for a job to be, I don't even know what a job title would be for your industry. But you could put aspiring businesswoman in the technology sector. I don't know what it would look like for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I would actually put, you know, a BTM co-op student. I would put that in your banner, in your, so that top picture there where you have a picture, I believe it looks like, no, what is that, New York? I would put something in there.
Okay.
About being a co-op student or something like that, or not a co-op student, being part of the business technology industry or something like that. I'm just reading your about section now. Reading quickly. So the first paragraph is actually really great. I think for the second paragraph, Palak, again, I would position the job responsibilities. Right now, it currently reads that they've allowed you to continually strengthen your communication skills. I would again put that how that could help a future employer. Okay. So I would take the words job responsibilities out, and I would say something like the communication skills I acquired assisted this program in achieving such and such objectives.
Okay,
Does that help?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And your work experience, the work experience is great. I would expound on what that meant for the 60 attendees. So
Okay.
you hosted these panels. What was the objective of the panel, and what did that person walk away with at the end of the day?
Okay.
And then I would do that for, so you interacted with 40 plus professionals for monthly and annual conferences. Mention what those professionals learned or what they walked away with. Again, it kind of sounds like we're creating those fuzzy feelings, but we're trying to create something engaging and elicit an emotional response from whoever is reading our profile. So finding ways to do that is showing people what it is that they can take away when they interact with us.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. So basically, I need to focus on how my skills kind of help that organization, so whoever wants to or wishes to hire me can see how I am a valuable candidate.
Yes, exactly. It's
Okay,
brilliant.
that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, and then I would just start engaging in groups and start growing your network. Start searching for people that would be interesting to connect with using the search bar and all the filters that appear up there, and start growing your network. Because I think you have a compelling story, but now what we need to do is grow your network so more people see your story.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions, or would anyone else be interested in me taking a quick look at their profile? Palak, if you don't mind me mentioning, the first line of your about section is brilliant, and I wouldn't change a thing. I'm an ambitious, resourceful student that's always ready for a conversation. That's engaging. That's a hook. That got me. So that elicited an emotional response in me, and so it's perfect. I really like it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So one thing I will mention about Palak's profile, if you don't mind. So Palak does have a banner picture, but right now it's a static picture with no text. So that's what Palak's going to do, is add some text. Another compelling thing you can do with your banner photo is to include a call to action. And what a call to action is what is the next logical step in order for us to talk? Is the next logical step for you to follow my content on LinkedIn? Is the next logical step for you to visit my blog over at abc.com? So a call to action invites the person who lands on your profile into the next step of engagement with you. So maybe think about what some potential call to actions could be for you. And I would consider putting that in your banner. And again, it's that visual cue, that visual hook that hopefully draws the person to actually take that action and stay engaged with you on some level.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely, like you said, go on Canva and kind of play around and see what I can make.
Yeah, good luck. Canva's a great tool. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes easy. So just be patient with it, and I'm sure you'll create something fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. I don't know if there's any more questions, but Leanne, what dates are you back again? March 4th and
March 4th
25th?
and 25th. And on March 4th, we're looking at the About section. So we did that really briefly with Palak's About section today. But on March 4th, we're really going to dive into some templates that you can use, some of those helper words that I mentioned, and some other things that you can add to your About section. So it is worthy of its own hour of dialogue, which is why we're going to tackle that on March 4th.
Awesome, great. And we will be announcing that soon. So if you aren't on our email list for events, just email me and I'll add you, and then you can be in the loop. Great. Any last minute questions before we take off? Okay.
I believe Jesse would like to be added, so make sure you grab his email before we lose the chat.
Okay, great. Awesome. So once again, I will plug our next self-management skills session on Tuesday. We did record the last one and the link is in the registration. So if you sign up, you'll be able to view the last session and continue on with the rest of the series. And we also have a lot of other events. So once again, email me and get on our events list. So once again, thanks, Leanne. And that's it for today.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you at the next one.